Malaise, an inexplicable feeling of malaise. No, not my body. For a 40-year-old guy, I'm in pretty good shape. I run 2 miles every morning except Sunday. I work out with free weights 3 times a week and watch my diet carefully. I'm not as lean and muscular as I was in college, but my 185 pounds is well within my 6-foot height. No, the malaise I'm talking about is how I feel about my marriage. Last week, we celebrated our 10th wedding anniversary. It went well, with all of our friends and family coming to my brother's house for an ill-concealed surprise party. My 7-year-old daughter, Becca, co-hosted the party with her favorite Aunt Jill. I suspect that Lucy, my wife, guessed everything in advance because 2 days before the party, she wore a new outfit, applied self-tanner, and had a manicure. And me? Well, I showered that morning, so... Becca is still the highlight of my marriage and the one thing that keeps me moving forward. Lucy, on the other hand, just seems to have lost interest in me. Don't get me wrong, she's not a bitch. She doesn't turn me down for sex, which is why I don't run on Sunday mornings. But it feels like she just does it to get it over with like any other chore. I got on the internet and looked up some self-help stuff to revitalize the marriage. I did the usual. Flowers, dinners, weekend surprises, a spa weekend for her and her friend, and even a couple of pieces of jewelry. She was always gracious with every gesture, but not in a romantic way. A few weeks ago, I gently asked her about her lack of enthusiasm, and she was a little offended to hear that I thought she was unenthusiastic about our marriage. She assured me that she still loved me very much and reminded me that we were no longer in our early 20s. It was a typical Sunday. Yes, she let me sleep with her that morning. I drove the mower back into the garage just as my brother, Paul, pulled into my driveway. Lucy and Becca went shopping with Jill, and I invited Paul over to watch the game. I bought us each a couple bottles of beer and chips, and we sat down to watch the game. We'd spent a lot of time in the past yelling at the umpires for terrible decisions, but instant replay proved that those bastards are pretty good at their jobs, so we mostly watched in silence. Sometime during the 3rd inning, I noticed my brother staring at me intently. What? Something's bothering you, bro. You're not as happy as usual lately. I fiddled with the label on my bottle of beer, searching for the right words. You and Jill have been married for 12 years, is that true? 13, actually, but so what? And she's happy, and you're happy, right? Dan, it's no secret we went through some shit when she found out we couldn't have kids, but yeah, we're happy. Why? Is there something going on with Becca? I hung my head, trying to put my feelings into words. I don't know, not really. I just feel like something's wrong and she doesn't notice it. She says everything's fine, but I just can't shake the feeling that something's wrong. But have you talked to her about it? Told her how you feel and stuff? Yeah. She kind of took offense when she realized I didn't think everything was perfect. Well, is she hurt? She hasn't started to have changes yet. She's too young. No, she's still regular as clockwork. I asked about it, and her last checkup was excellent. Is it because of her job? Is she stressed out at work? No shit, she loves her job. It's pretty much all she talks about except Becky. Paul slowly made a grimace and then started shaking his head. There's no way she's having fun with anyone? What? What do you mean? You mean like at work? He nodded. Hell, I didn't even think about it. Well, I'm sure it's not true, it's just not Lucy. She loves you and Becca. She would never do anything like that. It can't be. Right? I just stared at my brother while the events of the last few years flashed through my mind. Could it be possible? Could she be so disinterested because she has a lover? Someone who provides all the excitement she needs? My stomach churned as I pictured her in the arms of another man. Oh my God, oh my God. Whoa, Danny. Don't let your imagination run wild. Personally, I don't think there's any way she's going to get involved with some other guy. You need to pull yourself together. If you really suspect it's possible, you're going to need proof. I nodded at him. Yeah, But how can I do that? It would have to be at work. She wouldn't have time to do anything outside of work. She's always here with me and Becca. Okay, let's think about it. Does she still work at the law firm for that lady? Alice Johansson, yeah, she's still her assistant, and there's also 3 male attorneys there, but they're all pretty old guys. Hey, a lot of old assholes like to chase younger women, and Lucy is still attractive. Yeah, I guess, but I just don't see them that way. But what am I supposed to do? Do we know any private investigators or security people? No. Well, I know Jim Rollins, our plant's head of security, but he deals with buildings and hardware systems, not peeping and sneaking. You know him well enough to ask him for advice? I thought for a moment, then nodded. Yes, I think I do. I'll talk to him tomorrow. Paul, don't say anything to Jill, okay? No way! I won't say anything, and we never discussed that shit. I still think you're nuts, but apparently you need to cover all your bases. I couldn't concentrate on the game, and Paul left just before the girls got home. They piled into the house with several bags and started showing off their new clothes. I was glad I was distracted, as it helped me shake off the awkwardness and get through the evening. On Monday, I stopped by Jim's office and said hello. We chatted for a bit, and then he asked what I needed. I hesitated for a bit, and then finally told him what I suspected. Dan, I hope you're wrong, but I understand. Right now, you only know what you don't know. The question you need to ask yourself is, do you really want the answers you're looking for? What? Of course I want to know. That's why I'm here. Okay, it's just that some guys regret finding out the truth. There's some truth to the old saying, what you don't know won't hurt you. Maybe it will for some, but I have to know for sure or it will drive me crazy. Okay, I know a guy, a retired detective who can do it. He's not a private detective, but he knows his business. His services will cost about half the price of a private detective. I'll have him call you. On Wednesday, I had lunch with Phil Logan, a former police detective. He agreed to observe Lucy for a week and then provide me with a report. It was the longest week of my life, and it was extended to Friday. We met for lunch, and he handed me the report. I can assure you that your wife is not hanging around with any of the old men she works for. Furthermore, I haven't seen any evidence that she's been hanging around with any of the guys at any time. I exhaled, not knowing I was holding my breath. That's gratifying. Phil held up a hand. I suspect she might be hanging around with her boss, Ms. Johansson. Phil didn't have time to finish before I goggled at him. Alice? Really? They meet clients at the Regent. They have lunch and usually get the client to sign some papers that Lucy prepares. After the client leaves, they go across the street to the Bradley condominium where Ms. Johansson has a second apartment. They spend a couple hours at the condo and then return to the office. Of course, I can't say with certainty what they were doing in the condo, but I walked past them in the lobby and they smelled strongly of soap and freshly applied perfume. Damn it. Alice? My God, I had no idea. She's been married for as long as I've known her. I wonder if William knows. I suspect he doesn't. The apartment is listed under her maiden name, Peterson. Of course, he might know that since this building houses the corporate apartments of several attorneys and several companies. It's pretty convenient to the whole downtown area. I sat in stunned silence, trying to comprehend everything Phil had said. I shook my head in amazement. Lucy and Alice. I just can't believe it. Like I said, I can't prove anything yet. If you want, I can try to hook up a microphone or camera to the device, but that would be an illegal recording and useless in court. I have a suggestion, if you're ready for a confrontation. I nodded, and he explained his idea. I stood up and shook his hand. Thank you. The weekend passed without incident, but the sex on Sunday was different. On Wednesday, just after 1:30 p.m., I got the text I'd been waiting for. I told my assistant I was off for the day and drove to the Bradley condominium. Upon entering the small lobby, I found Phil sitting in a chair. They went up about an hour ago. Do you want me to hang out here? No, I'm fine. Dan, I'm sorry this happened to you. I know you're upset, but don't do anything stupid. Think about your daughter. You don't want to go to jail. I nodded and thanked him again. Then I settled back in my chair. As I waited, I thought about what she would say. Would she lie? Try to pretend nothing happened? Or would she tell me the truth? I had been there for about 40 minutes when the elevator opened and the two of them stepped out of it. Lucy was laughing at something Alice must have said. Her arm wrapped around Alice's arm in a warm hug. She looked as happy as I hadn't seen her in years, and it broke my heart. I swallowed and said loudly, "Hi, Lucy, Alice." Lucy squealed and dropped Alice's hand. She stared at me, and her hand flew up to cover her mouth. "Dan, what are you doing here?" I guess I could ask you the same thing, but I'm pretty sure I already know the answer to that question. We just had to stop by and pick up some papers Alice left here last night. My eyes closed and I shook my head. So much for expecting the truth. I turned my wrist and looked at my watch. They must have been well hidden since it took you almost 2 hours to find them. Alice found her voice. "Daniel, have you been spying on us? You do realize this is private property and you have no right to be in this hall?" I smiled at her. "You are right, counselor. However, I didn't think you would object to a short visit from the spouse of a close personal friend like Lucy. If you order me to leave, I'll just go to 1911 Stone Correct Place and see my old buddy William." Lucy gasped when she heard me give Alice's home address. "Dan, please, I'll leave with you right now. Please don't make trouble for Alice." "Let him go. I think he'll be disappointed with William's answer." Alice tilted her head and studied my face, smiling a knowing smile. "So I assume you have some sort of arrangement with William?" She nodded. "Well, isn't that unusual? I wish Lucy had done me the favor." "And would you have agreed to such an arrangement, Daniel, if she had come to you and explained our relationship?" "Not likely. But it would have been nice if I'd been given the opportunity to voice my opinion. Instead, your girlfriend chose to lie to me." "Well, now that it's out in the open, what are your intentions? You know I can't let you hurt her." Lucy walked over to Alice again and took her hand. She looked frightened, partially hiding behind her lover's back. Alice gently stroked the hand that clutched her arm. "I've never raised a hand to her, and I never will." I turned to face Lucy. "I'm going to pick up Becca and take her home. Your mother is on her way to my house and has agreed to stay for the short term to look after Becca." "You told my mother? Why? Why did you do that? Oh my God!" "I did it so Becca would have someone to look after her when I wasn't home. You won't be allowed back in my house." "You can't keep me out of my own house." "You can come back tomorrow and get your clothes. Mom and I will pack it up and put it on the porch." Alice turned to her. "Is your name on the deed?" I replied, "No, the house is mine. I inherited it from my aunt before we were even engaged." She turned to Lucy again. "That may or may not mean anything. You've been married for 10 years, so a friendly judge might consider the house to be joint property. You can stay here until we get an order allowing you to move back into the house." Lucy stepped toward me. "Dan, please. I know this is a shock to you, but I still love you and I want you to be my husband. Alice lives apart from us. Please give me a chance to talk things over with you before you destroy us. Please, Dan, for Becky's sake, please give me a chance to talk to you about this." I looked at her and she could see the cold fury in my eyes. She pressed herself against Alice and hung her head. "Daniel, I know you love your daughter. Please let Lucy explain herself and you'll see that I'm not threatening you. Just hear her out. It won't cost you anything but a small amount of your time." "Shut up, Alice. I don't need or want your advice." I paused, thought for a moment, turned to Lucy and said, "Okay, meet me in the park near my house in an hour. Come alone." I cast a glance at Alice. As I approached the car, I pulled my phone out of my top jacket pocket and finished recording what I had seen. I checked it, and clearly recorded both women confessing their infidelity and essentially asking me to just accept it. The recording wouldn't be admissible in court, but it was compelling evidence nonetheless. I found Lucy sitting on one end of a park bench. I sat on the other end and turned to her. "So, Lucy, this is your chance to explain yourself. If I think you're just lying and trying to downplay everything, I'll walk away." "Dan, thank you for meeting me here. I know this is my only chance to explain myself, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. Some of the things I've said may hurt you, and I'm sorry. I know you're already hurting, and I don't want to add to that pain, but you asked for the full truth." "Yes, of course I'm hurt, but I think I deserve an honest explanation on your part." She nodded. "About 9 months ago, Alice and I completed an important negotiation with a client at the Regent. After the meeting, we had a drink at the bar. The bar was crowded and some clumsy asshole knocked over a full glass of wine on Alice. I helped her wipe it up, but she was soaked through. She said she had a change of clothes across the street and that we'd stop by there before heading back to the office. We walked up to the Bradley condominium and went up to her apartment. She said she had gotten that condo as part of her fee and had saved it for when she wanted to stay and not go to her country home. We chatted as we walked to her bedroom. She took off her blouse and said her bra was soaked too and pulled it off. Alice put her hands on her hips and stood like that for quite a while, letting me devour her bare breasts with my eyes. Then she giggled a little and said she was glad I liked her breasts because she had always admired mine. She then walked over to me and started undoing the buttons on my blouse. I froze in place like that. I didn't try to stop her, and my eyes were still fixed on her breasts as she jiggled them. She pulled off my blouse and unhooked my bra. I shrugged. She put her arms around me and pulled me to her. When our breasts made contact, I felt an electric shock run through me. Then she kissed me, and I think I fainted a little. Our clothes just seemed to melt away and we collapsed on the bed. "Dan, I've never been with a woman. I had no idea what to do. Alice just picked me up and started moving me around. She lowered herself on top of me and I exploded almost immediately. When I calmed down, she put her arms around me and I started to cry. I was sobbing because I had cheated on you, and the guilt was weighing heavily on me. Alice stroked me and told me it would be okay. She said you would understand and forgive me for this indiscretion. I cried and said I knew you wouldn't and that my marriage was over. Then she said that perhaps it would be better if I never brought it up and you would never have to know what had happened. It took her a while to calm me down and convince me not to confess my sins to you. The guilt was terrible, and I just knew you would look at me and realize what I had done. But you didn't. A few days later, we were doing well. We made love on Sunday, and everything was fine. You still loved me, I still loved you, and my marriage was safe. I started to relax again, and Alice started teasing and flirting with me. I liked it and flirted back. I took it as harmless fun. Then we were leaving another client meeting at Regent, and she took my hand and led me across the street. I didn't resist and spent the day in bed learning how to pleasure her. You were doing well at home, but then you started asking about our love life. You seemed unhappy, so I tried to put some effort into making you happy. She reached out and placed her palm on my hand. Tears began to roll down her cheeks. Dan, this is the part that embarrasses me the most, and I'm afraid will hurt you even more than the pain I've already caused you. When you kept asking me what you could do to make me feel better, I wasn't lying when I said I was happy with the way things were. I realize now that it was terribly selfish of me, but I didn't think so then. I love you, and I love intimacy with you. I never had a strong libido, but you always made me feel so loved. In bed, I was happy with what we did, and very happy with the way you did it. As my relationship with Alice progressed, I was getting more and more sex. And then I would go home to my perfect life, my perfect daughter, and my perfect husband. Yes, that's selfish and unfair. I knew I was cheating, but I wasn't giving myself to another man. What I'm doing with Alice, you and I could never do, so I let myself believe that I wasn't really cheating, not in the classic sense that spouses cheat. Dan, I'm sorry. I treated you badly, but I still love you with all my heart. I want to be by your side as we watch Becca grow up and go out on her own. Please, baby, give me a chance. Give us a chance. I shook my head slowly, took a deep breath, and said, "Thank you for telling me the truth. It's hard for me to understand how you could think your actions were okay. Basically, you said you lied to yourself to make things okay. But you also lied to me when I tried to talk to you. You let our love life go down the drain without caring about my feelings because you were too busy enjoying yourself elsewhere. Lucy, you never once said you'd stop seeing Alice, so I suppose you expect me to stop complaining and be content with our meager love life while you continue to be her little sex pet?" Her mouth opened and then closed. She lowered her head and tears splashed into her lap. She struggled to find the words she wanted to say. "You're right. It's incredibly selfish, but it's not forever. I know she'll get tired of me and find someone new. Please, Dan, just give me a little more time and it will be over." I stood there looking at her pleading, tear-drenched face. Her words had just crushed my soul. I was now nothing more than her backup plan, her retirement plan. I knew her new experience had opened a door she could never close. I would never be able to fulfill her needs, which meant she would never be able to fulfill mine. I fought the tremor in my voice. "No, Lucy, you've stolen enough of my life. I can't give you any more time. I gave you all I could give you, and it wasn't enough. We're done here. I'll order you to be served in your office." I turned and walked away. I didn't look back as she called my name and begged me not to leave. My heart desperately wanted to turn around and rush to her, to take her in my arms and tell her everything was going to be okay, but I knew it was a lie. I loved this woman with every fiber of my being, but she was changed by what Alice had awakened in her. She was lost to me, and I needed to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Tears blurred my vision as I walked down the path to the parking lot. Lucy and Alice put up every obstacle they could to delay the divorce, but after 8 months, it was final. The court didn't want to evict Becca from the house, and I foolishly thought I could get custody of my young daughter. Instead, I was discharged from my own home and awarded primary custody to Lucy. My attorney was able to get me out of spousal maintenance, but I will still be paying child support for a long time to come. Since there was no mortgage on my house, I wasn't crushed financially and found a nice apartment near my work, but in Becky's school district. She has her own room and seems to like the pool and other amenities the apartment provides. Every time I have to interact with Lucy, she gets on my nerves less and less. She still works for Alice, so I assume they still play with each other, but who cares? I'm always polite to them, and Lucy never gives me a hard time about seeing Becca, so all my thoughts of revenge have been quashed. I just won't risk complicating my visitation rights. My life isn't what I envisioned it to be a year ago, but gradually the malaise is subsiding, and every now and then a ray of sunshine breaks through. Of course, the main source of sunshine in my life is Becca, but the green-eyed, red-haired girl from Troop 207 has brightened my mood on more than one occasion. This morning I talked to Michelle and Susan, 2 nurses who just moved into the unit next door, and invited them to dinner tonight. Who knows? Maybe some more sunshine will come my way.